1947, Roswell, New Mexico. A mysterious event that still baffles people today. That night, a strange, flying object fell from the sky onto a farmer's field in Roswell. The U.S. Army immediately sealed off the area and took the debris away. The official statement said it was just a weather balloon. But the farmers who arrived first that night had a different story. They saw a crashed flying saucer and some strange creatures lying near it that did not appear to be human. Who were they? What was that machine? No one knows to this day. Whatever was found that night was hidden by the U.S. Army in a top-secret military facility known to the world as Hangar 51. 10 years after this incident, in 1957, a U.S. military convoy was heading toward Hangar 51 in Nevada, USA, but was stopped at a checkpoint by guards because a nuclear weapon test was soon to take place there. Therefore, the entire area was sealed off for 24 hours. But then, the soldiers shot all the guards, broke through the checkpoint, and headed straight to a massive warehouse inside Hangar 51. In reality, they were Russian soldiers disguised as American soldiers. Upon reaching the warehouse, they opened the trunk of their car and pulled one hostage out. Then they pulled the second hostage out of the trunk and threw him to the ground. That hostage was Indiana Jones, a renowned archaeologist and fearless treasure hunter whose exploits had become legendary and whose adventures were known throughout the world. The other hostage was Mac, a former soldier and an old friend of Indy's. They had recently been conducting archaeological research in Mexico. The Russians had captured them from there and brought them here. Indy couldn't understand what the Russians wanted from him. Just then, a woman stepped out of the car and stood before Indy. She was Irina Spalko, a Russian military officer. Indy remained fearless. He looked Spalko in the eyes and asked, "Why have you taken us hostage?" Spalko and her soldiers brought Indy inside the warehouse. It was a huge warehouse filled with secrets collected by the American military over the years. There were thousands of boxes, each containing some hidden mystery. Among all those boxes, Spalko was looking for just one. Spalko said, "Dr. Jones, I'm looking for an object. A rectangular box containing a corpse. You must be familiar with the corpse I'm talking about, because 10 years ago, you were part of the team that investigated that incident." In fact, Spalko's words were directly related to the Roswell, New Mexico incident. She was looking for the body that the U.S. military had recovered from the crashed flying object. Indy said, "I did go there to investigate, but I stood 10 meters away. The U.S. military didn't let anyone, not even me, see what was there." Then the Russian soldiers pointed their guns at him and said, "Help us find the box, or you'll be killed." Indy was helpless. He agreed to find the box, but finding that one box among thousands of boxes was like searching for a needle in a haystack. However, Indy was the kind of man who could uncover secrets, even in the most impossible situations. Indy asked Spalko's men for gunpowder, but they laughed. Then Indy said, "I noticed something at the scene that night. The thing you're looking for is highly magnetic, and gunpowder contains metal particles. If you want my help, give me the gunpowder." Spalko's soldier handed Indy a handful of gunpowder. Indy blew it into the air. The gunpowder began to get pulled in a certain direction and disappeared into a pile of boxes. This meant the box Spalko was looking for was nearby. Now Indy asked for shotgun shells, removed the small iron pellets from them, and scattered them among the boxes. All the pellets stuck between the boxes. Spalko ordered her soldiers to move the boxes. As soon as they cleared them, a box appeared with all the pellets stuck to the outside. Spalko had found her box. No one knew what was inside that had such a strong magnetic force that metal objects were drawn toward it even from a distance. On Spalko's command, the soldiers loaded the box onto a cart. Then the box was opened. Inside was a metallic-looking container. The soldiers cut open the container with a knife. Smoke began to rise from it. Then, what appeared next stunned everyone. Inside was a charred creature, its hand sticking out. That hand was definitely not human. All the soldiers watched with silent fear. Just then, Indy seized a chance, snatched a soldier's gun, and aimed it at Spalko. He ordered all the soldiers to drop their weapons. They lowered their guns, but in the next moment, they started laughing and raised them again. Indy was confused. When he turned around, he saw his friend Mac pointing a gun at him. Indy asked in shock, "Why this betrayal, Mac? I thought we were good friends." Mac said, "Friend, I'm just a businessman and these people are going to give me a lot of money." Now, Indy's escape was impossible. He threw his gun down in anger, but it fired, hitting a soldier's leg. All the soldiers panicked. Seizing the chance, Indy escaped in a rocket sled. But as soon as he got away, the FBI arrested him. Indy gave them all the information. However, the FBI began to suspect Indy of being a Russian accomplice. Although they released him, they continued to keep an eye on him. This had a negative impact on Indy's image. Indy, besides being a treasure hunter, was also a professor of archaeology at a college. He was soon dismissed from the college. Indy was deeply disheartened. He decided to leave town. The next morning, he boarded a train for New York City. But as the train was leaving the station, someone called out to him from outside the window. Indy saw a young man riding a motorcycle. The boy said, "Professor Jones, do you know Dr. Harold Oxley?" Indy was shocked because Harold Oxley was his old friend. Indy asked, "Where is Oxley?" The boy replied, "Oxley's life is in danger." Hearing this, Indy immediately got off the train and went to a cafe with the boy. The boy introduced himself as Mutt and showed Indy a photo of himself with Oxley. Seeing it, Indy said, "Oxley was a brilliant archaeologist, my best friend, but I haven't seen him in 20 years. What's your relationship with Oxley?" Mutt replied, "When my father died, Oxley helped my mother raise me. He was like a father to me." Indy asked, "So, you mean Oxley's life is in danger?" Mutt explained that 6 months ago, his mother received a letter from Oxley. Oxley was searching for an ancient artifact in Peru. He was looking for some kind of skull, a crystal skull similar to the one discovered by Mitchell Hedges. In 1924, Mitchell Hedges, a British explorer and author, claimed that his adopted daughter, Anna, had discovered a mysterious skull during excavations at a Mayan site called Lubantun. It resembled a human skull but was made of crystal, transparent and so perfectly carved as if it had been cut with a laser. However, such a feat was impossible for the civilizations of that time. Legend says that the crystal skull possessed psychic powers, healing abilities, visions of the future, and the power to control the minds of others. After seeing the skull, many people experience strange hallucinations and dreams. Even today, the skull remains a mystery. Indy shared his opinion, saying, "Many crystal skulls have been found around the world. I personally saw one in the British Museum, but they're all fake. Even Mitchell Hedges' skull is just a work of art made by human hands. There's no mystery." Then Mutt said, "You won't believe it, Professor, but Oxley wrote in a letter that he had discovered a completely genuine crystal skull. He said he was now taking the skull to a place called Akator, but I don't understand what this Akator is." Indy explained, "Akator is a mysterious mythical city, a lost city. It's believed to still be hidden somewhere in the Amazon jungle. Francisco de Orellana, a Spanish explorer, called it El Dorado, meaning City of Gold. It is said that 7,000 years ago, an ancient tribe called the Uga tribe was chosen by the gods to build a city entirely made of gold. It had paved roads, modern waterways, and engineering that seemed thousands of years ahead of its time. In 1546, Francisco de Orellana and 6 companions went to the Amazon in search of Akator, but they disappeared deep in the jungle. To this day, no one has found their bodies or any trace of them." Hearing this, Mutt asked, "But why was Oxley taking that crystal skull there?" Indy replied, "Because the crystal skull has a deep connection to Akator. It is said that in the 15th or 16th century, a mysterious crystal skull was stolen from Akator, robbing the city of its power. It is believed that whoever finds the skull and returns it to the temple of Akator will inherit its immense powers." Mutt asked in surprise, "What kind of power?" Indy, avoiding his gaze, said, "I don't know. It's just a story. Now tell me, who is threatening Oxley's life?" Mutt explained, "After reading the letter Oxley sent, my mom felt like he had lost his mind. She went to Peru to find him, but it was too late. Oxley had already been kidnapped, and now those same people have taken my mom too. In fact, Oxley has hidden the crystal skull somewhere, and the kidnappers think my mom knows where it is. If she doesn't find the skull and give it to them, they will kill both my mom and Oxley. My mom told me, only you can help me now. Only you can find that crystal skull." Mutt continued, handing Indy a letter. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from my mom. She had managed to escape from the kidnappers and was hiding from them. During that time, she mailed me this letter from Oxley." Indy opened it and looked at it. It was written in an ancient language, but before Indy could decipher it, 2 unknown men surrounded them. They had guns. They asked Indy to take the letter and quietly come with them. However, their manner of speaking exposed them. They were Russian spies. Indy and Mutt pretended to go with them. Then Mutt created chaos in the cafe. Using the crowd, Indy and Mutt escaped. Seeing the Russian spies there, Indy realized something. He said to Mutt, "These Russians are your mom's kidnappers. Actually, your mom didn't escape from them. The kidnappers let her go so she could mail this letter to you, and you could deliver it to me. The truth is, the Russians want me to translate this letter." Somehow, Indy and Mutt escaped the Russians and arrived at Indy's house. After carefully examining the letter, Indy deciphered something. It said, Cohoma, an ancient South American language that became extinct 3,000 years ago. It was spoken by the Mayan civilization. Indy understood the language. Smiling, he told Mutt, "This is a riddle. Follow the lines on Earth that only the gods can see. These lines will lead you to the cradle of Orellana, who is found imprisoned among the living." Indy understood half the riddle right away. He said, "Lines that only the gods can see. That means the Nazca lines." Hearing this, Mutt asked, "Nazca lines?" Indy opened a book containing drawings. Indy told Mutt, "These are geoglyphs, giant ancient drawings. These massive figures were carved into the Peruvian desert in ancient times. They stretch so far out that if you look at them from the ground, you won't see anything. But from the sky, they're clearly visible. Only God can see them, because he's above." Oxley wants to tell us that the skull is somewhere in Nazca, Peru. Indy and Mutt immediately boarded a flight and arrived in Peru. After questioning the locals in a village, they learned that Oxley had arrived a few months earlier. But his behavior was like a madman. He would scream and mutter to himself for no reason. The police arrested him and put him in a mental asylum. Indy and Mutt reached the asylum right away, unaware that a strange figure was stalking them like a shadow. Indy and Mutt met the warden of the asylum and asked about Oxley. The warden explained that a few weeks earlier, some armed men had come and taken Oxley away. He also said that Oxley had been locked in his cell for a long time. During that period, he had been scratching pictures on the walls. The warden led Indy and Mutt to Oxley's cell. Inside, Oxley had carved skulls all over the walls, and next to them, in various ancient languages, he had written the same word, return. Indy was amazed by the image of the skull, as it was completely different from any other crystal skull discovered so far. But the question now was, where had Oxley hidden the crystal skull? And what did Oxley's riddle, the cradle of Orellana, mean? Indy had assumed that Orellana's cradle referred to the birthplace of the Spanish explorer Francisco de Orellana. But Orellana was born in Spain. So, what did that have to do with Peru? Indy was thinking deeply when he noticed a dust-covered figure on the floor. When he brushed the dust away, he understood something. He told Mutt, "I was wrong. In the Mayan language, cradle doesn't mean birth, but death. Orellana's cradle means Orellana's grave." Mutt questioned, "But you said Orellana and his 6 companions disappeared, so how can there be a grave?" Indy replied, "Oxley found them. The figure you see on the floor is Orellana's grave, and it's here in Peru." That same night, Indy and Mutt arrived at the cemetery. The thousands-year-old cemetery of the ancient Nazca civilization had turned into ruins. There was nothing visible, except broken walls and spider webs. Then Indy spotted a human skeleton protruding from a wall. When he pulled it out, he found a hole behind it with 2 ropes hanging. Indy pulled one of the ropes, and a passage opened in the wall in front of him. Indy confidently went inside with a smile, but Mutt was terrified. He saw poisonous scorpions, spiders, and human skeletons everywhere. But those skeletons were strange. Their skulls were long and stretched, just like the drawings Oxley had made on the walls of the asylum. Mutt asked, "Why are their skulls so elongated?" Indy explained, "In ancient times, the people of the Nazca civilization used to tie their children's heads tightly with ropes or wooden strips, so that their skulls would grow in a long and flat shape." Mutt asked, "Why did they do that?" Indy answered, "To honor their god." Mutt replied, "But God's head isn't like that." Indy said, "It depends on who they believe in." Saying that, Indy reached a tunnel. Inside the tunnel was a large, rounded rock, but it was stuck against the ceiling and blocking the way forward. Indy climbed over the spherical rock. As he reached the other side, the rock rolled and tilted, revealing a secret chamber. Indy and Mutt entered the hidden cave. There, they saw footprints on the dusty ground, as if someone had recently gone in and come out. As they went further inside, they found something shocking. 7 mummies, Orellana, and his 6 men. This was Orellana's tomb. Indy cut open the wrappings of one of the mummies. Inside was a dead soldier, but he looked like he had died only yesterday. Indy and Mutt were astonished, but within moments the body crumbled into a skeleton. Mutt looked at Indy in confusion. Indy explained, "It was preserved for 500 years. Because of the lack of air, the body didn't decay. Just then, Mutt spotted a mummy, whose wrappings were already torn off. Indy opened it and found a corpse wearing iron armor. The face of the armor was made of gold. Seeing it, Indy said, "This is Francisco de Orellana, known as the Gilded Man." His hunger for gold was endless. Indy removed the golden mask from the armor. Inside was Orellana's skull. Then Indy noticed something strange. Picking up the gold coins lying nearby, he said, "Someone has been here." But strangely, he didn't take any treasure. So what was the reason for coming here? Suddenly, the gold coin in Indy's hand flew by itself and landed behind Orellana's corpse. Indy moved Orellana's body aside, and he and Mutt were stunned by what they saw. Hidden behind the corpse was a crystal skull, a long, stretched skull made of pure quartz crystal. No joints, no cuts, no tool marks. It didn't seem like a human-made object at all. It looked as if it had come from another world. And the most surprising thing was that despite being crystal, it was attracting objects like a magnet, even non-magnetic things like gold. From the shape of the skull, it was clear that the ancient Nazca people considered it their god. Mutt asked, "Do you think this is the crystal skull brought from the lost city of Akator?" Indy replied, "I wonder if Oriana and his companions found it while plundering ancient Amazon civilizations. As they headed for their ship, the tribesmen might have chased them, or perhaps they fought among themselves, driven by greed for the skull. Eventually, they were all killed, and the tribesmen collected their bodies, mummified them, and buried them here. Then, because of religious beliefs, they left the skull behind. Centuries later, Oxley arrived here and found it. He took it and set out in search of the lost city of Akator. But one thing remains unclear. He put the skull back where he found it. But why?" With this question in mind, Indy and Mutt stuffed the skull into a bag and emerged from the tomb. But death awaited them outside. Indy's traitor friend Mac was standing there with armed Russian soldiers. They kidnapped Indy and Mutt along with the skull and brought them to a secret camp deep in the Amazon jungle. They tied Indy to a chair. Shortly after, Russian Colonel Spalko arrived. She said to Indy, "Nice to meet you again, Dr. Jones. You must know what Oppenheimer said. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." He said this after the invention of the atomic bomb. But now that quote applies to me, because I am going to create a weapon that will allow us to rule the entire world, and you Americans will live in fear. Hearing this, Indy asked in surprise, "What kind of weapon?" Spalko replied, "A mind weapon. With it, we will be able to control and rule the world." Indy laughed and said, "Now I understand why Oxley put the crystal skull back instead of taking it to Akator. Because you were looking for the skull. But what do you think? That crystal skull, worshipped by ancient civilizations as their god, will really give you miraculous powers?" Spalko replied, "No, Dr. Jones. That is not a man-made idol of a god. It is a real skull, but not of a human. It belongs to a creature from another world." Indy was shocked. Spalko continued, "The flying object that crashed in Roswell, New Mexico 10 years ago, which your US Army described as a weather balloon, was actually an alien UFO. We only learned about it after 2 similar alien UFOs crashed in our country." As she explained this, Spalko walked toward a stretcher carrying the alien body that her team had stolen from Hangar 51, the top-secret US military base. At the beginning of the film, they had opened the alien's head. Inside was something unbelievable. The alien skull was made of crystal, the same crystal as the skull found in Oriana's tomb yesterday. Spalko said, "You must know the story of the lost city of Akator, the golden city built by gods. But it's not just a story, it's real. That city truly exists, filled with technology and supernatural powers beyond human imagination. The ones who built it weren't gods. They were the ancestors of these aliens who came to Earth thousands of years ago but somehow got stranded here. Then, thousands of years later, perhaps more aliens were sent here in search of Akator, but they failed to land successfully." Even Indy found it hard to believe what he was seeing and hearing. Spalko continued, "Dr. Jones, thanks to you, I have found the missing crystal skull of Akator. According to legend, if I return it to the Temple of Akator, I will gain the power of the skull, powers humans can't even imagine, and you will help me find Akator." At Spalko's signal, her men brought Oxley into the tent. No one knew what had happened to him. He had lost his senses. He didn't even recognize his best friend Indy. Indy angrily asked Spalko, "What did you do to my friend?" Spalko replied, "We didn't do anything. He's like this because he stared at the crystal skull for too long. The skull has psychic power that drove him mad, but it also showed him how to reach Akator. The directions are locked in his mind, but we can't understand anything he says." Then she looked at Indy and said, Now you will look at the crystal skull. Maybe your mind is stronger than your friends. Maybe you can find Akator without going insane." Indy wasn't afraid. He said, "Why don't you do it yourself?" Spalko replied, "Because the skull reveals its secrets only to those with pure intentions." Saying this, she placed the crystal skull in front of Indy. When Indy looked at it, he became completely absorbed in it. It was as if he was under the skull's influence. Then, Indy uttered a word, "Return." The next moment, Indy began to struggle, as if he was losing control of his mind. Just then, Mac asked Spalko to cover the skull. He said that if Indy went mad, no one would be left to take them to Akator. Spalko covered the skull, and Indy calmed down. Now Spalko had only one option left. She told Indy to ask his friend Oxley for directions to Akator, or else they would kill him. But even then, Indy refused to cooperate. Then Spalko brought Mutt forward, and with him, a woman from the camp. When Indy saw the woman, he was stunned. It was Marian, his wife, whom he had left 20 years ago. And then came another shock. Marian hugged Mutt and called him her son. In reality, Mutt was Indy and Marian's son. Indy couldn't believe what he had just learned. Mutt was also stunned to learn the truth. Spalko threatened Indy that if he didn't help them, his family and friends would all be killed. Indy was forced once again to cooperate with Spalko. He went to Oxley and said, "Oxley, my friend, tell them where Akator is or we'll all be killed." But Oxley's mind was completely out of control. He was muttering to himself and moving his hands as if he wanted to write something. Indy gave him a pen and paper. Oxley's hand moved automatically across the page, drawing strange pictures. Connecting them, Indy faced another riddle. Water sleeps until the giant serpent awakens. Indy realized this clue pointed to a specific location. He immediately asked for a map. Looking at it, he said, "There's a giant snake here, meaning the Amazon River. But which river sleeps?" Indy searched for the answer on the map when Spalko pointed something out. "Look, this is the Sono River in Portuguese. Sono means sleep." Indy nodded and said, "Very good. Oxley wants us to follow the Sono River southeast, to where it meets the Amazon River." After learning this, Indy, along with Mutt, Oxley, and Marian, set off in that direction with Spalko's soldiers. They traveled along the banks of the Sono River in military vehicles. Indy knew Spalko's intentions were dangerous. He wanted to stop her from reaching Akator. Mutt and Marian sensed the same fear. Together, the three of them suddenly attacked Spalko's guards, seized their vehicle, and tried to escape. With quick thinking and bravery, they confronted Spalko and her army, rescuing Oxley and taking the crystal skull. Meanwhile, Mac also ended up in Indy's custody. Indy began beating the traitor, but Mac revealed he wasn't a traitor. He was an undercover agent for the US CIA. Hearing this, Indy let him go. Now that Mac's secret was out, he appeared to support Indy. They all fled along the riverbank, escaping Spalko and her army. But then their vehicle plunged straight into the river and fell down a massive waterfall. Luckily, they survived and reached the shore safely. Spalko and her soldiers were finally left behind. Indy decided to go to Akator himself and return the skull to its rightful place. Just then, Oxley noticed something and said, "Through those eyes, I last saw in tears." Everyone turned toward a massive rock ahead. It looked like a giant face carved into the mountain, with a waterfall flowing from one of its eyes. Indy understood instantly. They had to enter through the rock's eye. That was the gateway to Akator. They followed Indy inside. The cave was enormous. As they moved deeper, they found something incredible. Ancient paintings on the walls showing the Uga tribe, worshipping the sun god. Indy and the others were amazed. Mac asked, "How old do you think it is?" Indy estimated, "It looks 4,000 to 5,000 years old." The Uga tribe and the Egyptians shared many similarities. Both worshipped the sun god, and their gods had elongated skulls just like the crystal skull. This clearly showed that the gods they worshipped were aliens from another world. The drawings revealed that these aliens had taught humans how to farm, build irrigation systems, and become a civilized society. Indy kept moving forward, guided by Oxley, who had been here before. But suddenly, indigenous warriors ambushed them. The group ran for their lives, but they couldn't get very far. The indigenous warriors surrounded them from every direction. Their faces were painted, their weapons raised, and they looked furious to see intruders in their sacred territory. Indy and the others could clearly see death closing in. Then, something unexpected happened. Oxley took the crystal skull out of his bag and held it up high. The moment the tribesmen saw the skull, They froze, then slowly stepped back in fear and respect. The skull saved their lives. Using that moment, Indy and his companions slipped away and reached a massive pyramid. Oxley led them up to the top, where a large pillar-like stone stood, decorated with carved faces all around and surrounded by sand. Oxley scooped a handful of sand and whispered another riddle. With a true heart, lay your hand on the golden key that will open the palace of eternity. He pressed his palm on one of the carved stone faces, and the face moved like a hidden switch. Indy immediately understood. He and the others began removing the stone faces one by one. Sand poured out from inside the pillar as they worked. As the pillar emptied, 4 large stone supports above them slid into place. The ground beneath their feet vanished, and suddenly they dropped through, landing hard on a stone staircase inside the structure. Below them was a deep well, and the stairs led down into it. But before they could take a breath, the steps themselves began disappearing, sinking back into the walls like a collapsing trap. They sprinted downward, just managing to escape before the last of the stairs disappeared behind them. Deep inside the well, they discovered an entrance to a chamber. Inside, they stopped in awe. The room was filled with gold and priceless artifacts from ancient civilizations. Macedonian swords, Sumerian tablets, Etruscan statues, Babylonian relics, Egyptian treasures, all perfectly preserved. It looked like a museum created by beings who studied every civilization on Earth. Indy whispered his realization. These weren't gods, they were archaeologists. He was deeply relieved that Spalko hadn't made it here, but he didn't know that danger was already on the way. Mac, still pretending to help, had planted a tracking device. Spalko and her soldiers were already closing in. Meanwhile, Oxley stood before a wall that depicted the figure of an alien skeleton. He held the crystal skull up toward the carved skull. Indy immediately understood. He took the skull and placed it exactly where the skeleton's head would be. The wall trembled. A hidden door slid open. Inside was a breathtaking sight. A circular chamber made of gold, with 13 alien skeletons seated on thrones, all made of crystal. But one was incomplete, its skull missing. It was the very skull Oxley had brought. Oxley hurried to place the skull back where it belonged, but a gun clicked behind him. He froze. Mac. At that same moment, Spalko entered triumphantly with her soldiers. Indy and his companions were powerless to stop her. Spalko stared at the alien skeletons, mesmerized. She snatched the skull from Oxley, desperate to claim its power for herself. As she lifted the skull, it suddenly pulled itself into place, locking onto the alien skeleton's body. The skeleton sat upright, glowing with strange life. Oxley stepped forward, eyes glazed, and began speaking in a language that wasn't his. His voice echoed like it belonged to someone, or something else. Spalko glared at Indy. "What is he saying? What language is that?" Indy replied quietly. "It's ancient Mayan. The alien is speaking through him. He's saying he is grateful we returned the skull, and now he wants to give us a gift, a very big gift." Hearing this, Spalko looked at the alien and said, "I returned your skull. I want a gift. Tell me everything you know." The skeleton immediately looked at Spalko, and something inside its skull began to stir. Smoke-like energy started pouring from all the skull's eyes, and in an instant, the entire chamber began to shake. The gold plating on the walls started to peel away, and the chamber began changing shape. Mutt asked nervously, "What are these creatures? Are they aliens?" Then Oxley blurted out, "Actually, these are creatures from another dimension. I think a portal is about to open and take them back to their world." Oxley's mind had finally broken free from the alien's control. He was fully conscious. Just then, a portal opened above the chamber, pulling everything inside. Indy quickly led everyone out, but Spalko, still greedy for the alien's gift, stayed behind. She demanded, "Tell me, I want to know everything. I want all your knowledge." Suddenly, energy began flowing from all the alien skeletons into Spalko's eyes. She could see through the alien's eyes. All the knowledge stored in their minds was pouring into her. Then something extraordinary happened. All the alien skeletons merged together, forming a living, breathing alien. The energy became so intense that Spalko could no longer handle it. Her eyes burned, and in moments, she was reduced to ashes. Meanwhile, Indy led everyone out of the treasure chamber, but greedy Mac stopped to grab gold. Indy urgently shouted for him to leave, but Mac's greed blinded him. Suddenly, the chamber itself was pulled toward the portal, dragging Mac along. Indy left him behind and ran into a narrow well with the others. A powerful jet of water erupted from the well, throwing Indy, Mutt, Oxley, and Marion out. They all narrowly escaped. At that moment, an incredible sight appeared. The Mayan pyramid before them collapsed, and a massive alien spaceship tore through the ground. The ship vanished in a flash, leaving behind the ruins of an ancient civilization, now submerged underwater. The aliens had departed Earth. Indy, puzzled by the disappearance of all evidence, asked Oxley, where did they come from? Were they from space? Oxley replied, from a dimension beyond space, where time and physics do not apply. Mutt asked, I still don't understand one thing. Why was the story of the City of Gold created? What we saw wasn't gold. Indy answered, the ancient archaeologists misunderstood the story. In the Uga people's language, gold actually means treasure. He smiled, but their treasure wasn't gold. It was knowledge. Indy had once again made history, but this time, it was history with no evidence or witnesses. A truth seen by only a few, then lost forever. He quietly returned to his family, remarried Marion, and the film ended there. Friends, if you liked this video and got lost in the story while watching, please subscribe to support us, so we can keep bringing you more videos like this. Thanks for watching.